Hello everyone! So in today's video, I put together my absolute favorite Christmas DIYs from this season. This video is going to be jam-packed full of so many fun and easy Christmas DIYs, everything from scrap wood to DIYs from the Dollar Tree. I thought this would be so much fun to play in the background while you're making your own Christmas crafts. So I hope that you guys enjoy it. If you guys are new, hey, my name is Liz. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below. Go ahead and ring your guys' notification bell so you can be notified for all of my future videos. And without further ado, let's go into my top 25 favorite Christmas DIYs. I took this little mailbox that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and I took this outside and I spray painted it with some flat white spray paint from Rust-Oleum. I did do about 3 light coats of this. I did end up taking the little flag off of the tree as well so that it wasn't painted white. And then I also did cover it with a top coat to keep the paint nice and sealed on there. And I'm going to take the flag and I'm going to paint it in the lacquer paint from Waverly just to give it a less plasticky look to it. And then I got these decals from my Cricut design space. They were decals that were already made and I just cut those out and placed them onto my mailbox. I thought these were so cute to have as a little North Pole mailbox, you know, throw your letters to Santa inside of them. I thought they were absolutely adorable, and so I just stuck both of those on there. And then I'm gonna take a little wreath that I got from the Target dollar spot. I needed some green on here, and so I just took one of those. They're like little ornaments, and I just hot glued that to the top of the mailbox. And that was it. I thought that this turned out so cute and it fits perfectly into a tiered tray. And for this next project, you are going to take some white poster that you can get from the Dollar Tree. You can get them for 50 cents a piece, and you are going to make a little cone. I have seen these little trees at all the stores. I've seen other people do DIYs, and I wanted to make my own because I thought they were so stinking cute. So you're just going to make yourself a little cone. You're going to cut the bottom so that it sits flat. Now I got this jute rope from Joann's, but you can get this from the Dollar Tree as well. They come, I believe, in a 9-foot roll. And I'm going to hot glue it all the way around the bottom of the cone, and then I'm going to start wrapping it around the cone itself. You don't have to hot glue the entire thing. You can do a little hot glue and then start wrapping, and then a little hot glue and then wrapping. And it gets easier to do that as you go. And I just wrapped this around the entire cone. When I got to the top, I basically just kept wrapping it around, stuck some hot glue down in that middle, and then just pushed the rope down into the middle. After I'm done that, I'm going to take these little berries that you can get from Hobby Lobby. I know they also have some at Walmart, but I love these because they were sparkly. And I'm just going to wrap that around my tree and hot glue that in place. And then I'm going to take some more ribbon that I got from Walmart, just taking a piece and making it into a loop, and then making my tails and then tying it around with some twine, and I am going to hot glue that to the top of my tree. And that is how my little cone poster board tree turned out.
Hey Santa, the city is covered in snow tonight. Where did my love go? Santa, I'm waiting for him, but he's...
So for this next project, you're going to grab these 2 wooden tags from the Dollar Tree. Obviously, they do not have the 4th of July ones anymore, but they do have lots and lots of Christmas ones. Typically, they always have some sort of tag shaped sign there. So I just took 2 of these, cut off the twine hangers, and then started painting them. So I'm going to paint one of them in my Waverly chalk paint in white, and then the other one I'm going to paint in the Waverly chalk paint in steel. I took some of this wired twine that you can also get from the Dollar Tree and some of these wooden beads, and I began stringing these on there. I wanted to make a little snowman, so I'm going to take the head of the snowman, and he's going to have 10 beads on that one. The middle section will have 14 beads, and the bottom section will have 18 beads. And I just twisted the twine at the top to finish it off and then cut off any excess. I hot glued the head and the middle part of the body together. I took the ribbon and wrapped it around the middle of those and gave him a cute little ribbon scarf. I then began just hot gluing it straight to the sign. And I hot glued his little scarf down so it would stay in place. For the other sign, I started making some stripes with some painter's tape. I did one larger stripe and one smaller stripe on the right side, and then I also did the exact same thing to the bottom. Since the snowman tag will be overlapping this tag, I didn't need to worry about doing the stripes to the other side. So you're just going to follow those exact steps on the bottom. And then I decided to distress it just a little bit, so I went around the edges of both of the signs just to give it more of a weathered and rustic look. And then I felt like my snowman was missing something, so I found these buttons and I painted them black. I'm going to hot glue those down to his little body. I'm going to add some hot glue to the back of the snowman sign, and I'm going to hot glue that down, making sure that the 2 holes in each sign are overlapping. I cut out this Let It Snow decal from my Cricut, and I'm going to add this to the bottom portion of the bottom sign. I added some nautical rope. I just strung it through the back of the signs, tied a big knot, and then cut off the excess. I got this ribbon from Hobby Lobby. I thought it was super adorable, so I'm going to cut off a little piece to make a loop. I'm going to hot glue that loop together, and then I'm going to cut off another piece for the tails. I'm going to bunch them together and wrap some twine around it, tying a knot, and hot glue that down. And then I'm also going to hot glue the tails down to the side and the top of the sign.
Are still by the tree. They don't mean a thing till it's here with me. If you know where he is, please give him a ride, and I will wait here by the candlelight, 'cause his love is all I need, and my love I can guarantee.
So for this next project, this is an interchangeable sign from Gio and Dan. I'll have their Instagram and Facebook link down below. So this was one side of the sign that I had already done. They cut out all the wood, they assembled the frame, and then you just get to finish it. I think it's so awesome because then you have 2 signs in one. And I had been saving the back of this sign for a special little red truck that they also cut out for me. So I will have all that information linked down below if you want to check out their interchangeable signs. They can basically do any design you want. It's super, super cool. So I was so excited to feature this in my video. I'm going to take the back of the sign that I had already finished, and I'm going to paint the back in my Waverly chalk paint in white. I am not going to do a full coat on this because I do want it to look grungy and rustic, so I do want some of that natural wood to show through. After I'm done with that, I am going to make sure that I use my heat gun to make sure all the paint is dry. I'm going to take one of these large ruler/levels to draw some lines. I'm just using the Waverly Wax in Antique to do that. And after I'm done with that, I am going to slightly distress the rest of the sign just a little bit to give it a little bit more texture and dimension. And then I am going to take a very fine grit sandpaper to sand down some of those spots that were a little bit too heavy-handed. And then once I am done sanding all that down, I'm going to take this little truck that is unfinished. Like I said, I got this from Gio and Dan. I absolutely love this little truck. It has been sitting in my collection for a little bit just for this Christmas sign. So I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in lacquer and I'm going to paint this whole truck. I just took my black chalk paint and painted the wheels, the wood part of the bed in my Craft Smart stain in brown, and then I'm going to paint the wheels in my Silver Lining chalk paint by Waverly, and then I'm also going to paint that on the little bumpers on the front and the back. So I'm just going to start assembling my truck now. I would probably recommend like an E6000 or a wood glue for a more permanent hold. I just used my hot glue gun for this. Kind of regretting that decision, but we'll see how it holds up. If anything ends up popping off, I will go back in with a much stronger glue. And I will say this is also so much easier to paint that it's all in pieces and to glue it together rather than have them all together and you have to be super careful while painting. I much prefer my wood pieces to come like this. So I made this decal. I will have this decal for sale on my Facebook and my Instagram account. All you have to do is message me about it. So I'm just taking my transfer tape. I do get my transfer tape from Expressions Vinyl. This is just their clear transfer tape in a 12-inch roll. I do have a piece of wax paper laying on top of my sign. Now this is one of my tricks that I do to make it so that placing this on the sign is so much easier and you don't have to worry about the vinyl sticking to the sign in places where you don't want it to stick to. All you have to do is take a piece of wax paper and place your decal on top, making sure that part of the decal is not on the wax paper. So you can see where my Farm Fresh words are at the top. Half of them are not on the wax paper so that they can stick down to my sign. So once I have that on the wax paper, I can slide my decal around and place it exactly where I want it. I press down that Farm Fresh decal so that spot is completely stuck in place. And then I begin to remove my decal from the wax paper and slide the wax paper off of the wood sign, so then I'm able to just lay the rest of the decal onto the sign and it's all perfectly in place exactly where I want it to be. And then from there, all you're going to do is remove the transfer tape from the top. So after I've done that, I did take a little piece of wood that I had left over from some paint stir sticks. I did this so that this tree that I had that was actually from a previous Dollar Tree sign, just repurposed it from a previous year, and I just hot glued those to the back, added my sign back into the frame, added the little top part of my frame back to it, and there you go. There you have it. So stinking cute. I absolutely love being able to customize these pieces that look high end. I love it. Love it, love it, love it.
So please, Santa, bring back my love tonight.
I picked up these socks from the Target dollar spot. I thought that they were really cute. They aren't necessarily Christmassy, but I loved the color and the polka dots. I took one of these old white socks that I had, I filled it with rice, and then I added that sock into this sock, just giving it a couple layers, tied it with a rubber band, and cut off the top of the sock. After I'm done doing that, I got this fur from Amazon. I got 3 different colors and I thought they were so cute. It's just a faux craft kind of fur. I'll have it linked down below, and I just marked where I needed to cut it. Now there is kind of tricky cutting this because you don't want to cut through the fur on the front, so I tried using my little craft knife at first and that didn't go very well, and so I took my rotary blade and I just started pressing down enough to where I could hear it cutting through the back piece of the fabric. I would do that, and then I would take my little craft knife and I would just kind of pick through it and cut off the little strings, and I just basically worked my way around until the whole thing was cut out. Then you're just gonna pull your little piece of fur out, add some hot glue to the top, and hot glue that to your little gnome's body. I also flip up the beard and add some hot glue onto the sock itself just so that it's a little bit more secure. Now I take that other portion of the sock that we cut off previously and I'm going to use that for my little gnome's hat. Like I said, I loved the gray brim of it and I just thought it looked like a cute little beanie, and that's what I was going for. So I just started adding some glue around the brim. I made sure to leave enough room that I was able to tuck his little nose underneath the hat a little bit. I added some polyfill to his hat, just kind of moving it around and positioning it to where his hat looked full. I added some of this microfiber cloth that you can get from the Dollar Tree just for the little top of his hat. I just hot glued that right down and wrapped it around the end of his hat. I folded the top portion of the hat over and hot glued that down. Now I'm going to take a little wood bead that I got from Amazon. I'm going to spread his beard a little bit so that I can put the bead on. I kind of tuck it underneath the top of the hat and hot glue the hat down over top of the bead. And that is it for this cute little gnome. I absolutely love the way that he turned out.
Hey, Santa, sleigh bells ringing and my friends by my side, but it's not the same. Santa, I'm smiling but feeling empty inside.
Now for this next project, this is some scrap wood that I had in my garage. These are 1x2s. I will have all the measurements of what you need down in the description box below. I love the way that this scrap tree looks. I have made another scrap tree in a previous DIY. I will link that in the cards above, but I wanted this herringbone pattern tree. I thought it was absolutely gorgeous. So my husband and I cut these out and assembled them, and I am going to stain them in the Craftsmart Barnwood stain in gray. This is a water-based stain, so it dries really quickly and it does not smell either. And the nice thing is you can get an 8-foot piece of 1x2 from Lowe's or Home Depot for less than $2, and you can make so many different DIYs with it. So I then began assembling my tree with some clear Gorilla Glue and some hot glue so that I could get that long-term, short-term hold. And I just went on either side of each piece. I made sure to have it already set up the way that I wanted it, so I knew which piece went where. And then we took it out to the garage and we cut off the bottom so that it had a flat bottom. You could leave it the way that it was, but I prefer the flat edge on that. And then I took a couple more pieces of wood and to use for the base for my tree to stand up and for the trunk of the tree. And I just painted both of these in my stain. Now this base part of wood is a little bit of a different color, so it didn't take the stain like the other pieces, but that's okay because I am going to go over them with my white chalk paint. So I wanted this tree to be, the majority of it to be white, and then to have that stain peeking through. So I just went through in the direction of each piece of wood and I just went over it with my Waverly chalk paint in white. You can see here what I'm doing probably better than I'm explaining it, but I'm just going over it in a heavier dry brush technique, I would say. I'm going through all the pieces. I did go over the trunk of the tree as well, but I didn't do it as heavily as I did the other pieces. And then I'm going to take some twine and I'm going to start wrapping that around the trunk of the tree. I did want this tree to be more plain than any of my other trees. I loved the rustic simplicity of it. So I thought that by adding the twine to the trunk would just give it a little bit something extra without going too overboard. And I just wrapped it around in any kind of random direction. There really wasn't any way to it. I basically just wrapped it all around. I hot glued that to the tree and then I hot glued it down to the base of the tree as well. And that is how my little scrap wood tree turned out.
'Cause all of the presents are still by the tree. They don't mean a thing till he's here with me. If you know where he is, please give him a ride.
I am going to take these beads that I got from Amazon. They're just a natural wood bead. And I'm going to take some wire that I got from Walmart and I'm going to make myself a cute little ornament with it. So I basically just put on as many beads as I needed to make it large enough for the little red truck in the middle. I hot glued one of the beads in place just to make it so that all the beads weren't flying off everywhere. And then I took the little red truck that you can get from the Dollar Tree. It comes in a pack of 4 and I looped the little hanger on it through the wire and cut off the excess and just kind of wrapped it around the back. I then took some cute buffalo check ribbon that I had and made a little bow, and then I'll also use some of this ribbon to use as the hanger for the ornament. I do put the little hanger on first, tying it in a knot at the top and then hot gluing my bow down to the little beads. This ornament is so easy and simple and I think it's absolutely adorable. I think that the natural wood bead ornaments have to be some of my absolute favorite this year, and with the little red truck in the middle, I am so excited to hang this on my Christmas tree.
And I will wait here by the candlelight, but here's the love.
I'm going to take my Craftsmart stain in brown and I'm going to go over the entire frame of this little wood sign. I picked this up from Joann's. I don't remember the exact price of it, but it was very affordable. I picked it up, I think, like towards the beginning of the year. So it's been a while and I just haven't known what to do with it, and I thought this would be perfect for this project. So I'm just going to go through and stain the entire frame, and then I'm going to take some painter's tape and tape around the frame, and I'm going to paint the inside with my Waverly chalk paint in white. And I am going to do kind of a rough one coat of it. I wanted some of that natural wood to peek through, so I didn't cover it up entirely. I wanted it to look a little bit messy and rustic. And then I'm going to make sure that is dry using my heat gun, and then I'm going to take that painter's tape off, and then I'm going to take a brush that had some of that stain on it, and I'm going to go in between those lines a little bit just to give them a little bit more definition. And then I'm going to take these clear stamps that I picked up from Hobby Lobby, and I could not find my ink pad to save my life. I have no idea where it's at. So instead I decided to use some black paint and I just painted on the back of the stamps. And I'm going to take this ribbon that I also got from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to cut out a piece and I'm going to begin stamping the word peace on it. The one thing I did really like about these stamps is you didn't get the outside edges stamped onto your project, if that makes sense. You know, with normal stamps you can get the little corners and everything onto your project, which is fairly annoying, and these did not do that at all, which I was pleasantly surprised with. Now I'm going to take this little wreath that I also got from Hobby Lobby and these floral picks that again I got from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to start putting this together, putting some picks in there, dressing it up a little bit. So I'm going to take some red berries that just came on a pick from Hobby Lobby. I'm also going to intertwine those through my wreath, just putting them on both sides. After that's done, I'm going to hot glue my ribbon that says peace onto the back of my wreath. I just made sure that I pulled tight, and then I just re-glued where I needed to, and so that the ribbon was nice and tight on there. I then took this ribbon and tied a little cute bow with it. I also took some twine and made a bow with that as well. I wrapped it around my fingers probably about 4 or 5 times, and then I'm just going to tie a knot in the middle, and then I'm going to take my twine bow and I'm going to hot glue it on top of my ribbon bow. And then I'm going to take that entire thing and hot glue it to the middle of my wreath. I'm going to cut off the excess ribbon from my peace sign. I'm going to clean up the tails of my bow, and then I'm going to take some of that same ribbon that I used before. I'm going to loop it through my wreath. I'm going to hot glue the ends together, and then I'm going to hot glue it to the back of my sign. I just looped it through the little hanger that came on it, and then just hot glued that right down to the back. And that is how my little wreath peace sign turned out. I absolutely love this, especially because I can remove the wreath and put a different wreath on it for any season with the sign. I just think it turned out absolutely adorable.
It's all I need, and my love I can guarantee. So please, Santa, bring back my love tonight. Oh, 'cause he's love.
For this next project, I got this little sleigh from the Target dollar spot. It was $3. I'm going to paint it with my Waverly chalk paint in white, and then I'm going to add the Waverly antique wax to the handle and to the wood part of the sled. And I did do about 3 coats of the white chalk paint, and then for the antique wax, I just brush it on and then wipe the excess off with a paper towel. I began distressing my sleigh just with that same antique wax, just focusing the majority of it on the edges of the sleigh, and then I did go over the top just a little bit, and then I went over it with some sandpaper just to give it some distressing. I got these mini wreaths from Hobby Lobby and this berry garland from Michael's, and I'm just going to make a little wreath with it. I just cut off some of the berry garland and then started wrapping it around my little wreath. I hot glued that down to the sled. I grabbed this ribbon that you can also get at Michael's, and I hot glued that to my wreath. I also made this decal that says "Over the Hills We Go." I thought it was so cute, and I just added that to the bottom, and that is it for this project.
Love is all I need, and my love I can guarantee. So please, Santa, bring back my love tonight.
So for this next project, I am taking this little sign that I got from Walmart. It was on clearance. I got it several months back while it was on clearance for about $1. And I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint and plaster, and I'm going to paint this entire thing. Besides the back, it's going to be covered up anyways, so you won't see it. But I am going to do 2 coats using my heat gun in between coats to get that dry, because who has time to wait for paint to dry? I know with 3 kids, I do not. So I'm going to take these jumbo popsicle sticks that I also got from Walmart, and I am going to stain these in the Craft Smart stain in Barnwood Brown. And I'm also going to use that same stain to distress my sign. I absolutely love the way that this turned out, because I feel like it looks like actual wood that was painted white. That's all chipped and It's been sitting outside for a long time and all the white paint is coming off of it. I thought it looked so cool by the end of this. So after I'm done with that, I'm going to take those popsicle sticks and I'm going to start cutting them down to size of the sign. Now, at first I was hoping that all these popsicle sticks were going to lay flat, but the popsicle sticks did not completely fit in the sign. There was going to be a little bit of space where I was either going to have to cut down a popsicle stick, and I didn't want a popsicle stick that was way smaller in there. I guess I could have just put it at the bottom and you wouldn't have really been able to tell, but I decided to stack them on top of each other so that they kind of looked like a little shutter, and I thought this way turned out super cute as well. So you can see that I just have them slightly stacked on top of each other, and all I did was place the hot glue at the bottom where the popsicle sticks would overlap. And after I'm done with that, I'm going to take these cute little faux trees that I got from the Target dollar spot and from Hobby Lobby. The ones that I am painting are from Target dollar spot. I wanted them to all match and look flocked, so I'm just taking some of my white chalk paint and flocking the trees. And then I also go in with that same Barnwood Brown stain from Craftsmart to paint all the bottoms of the trees just so that they all match. And then I'm going to take the last of one of these little red truck Christmas ornaments, and I am going to take a wooden dowel and my miter shears, and I'm going to cut 2 pieces that I can hot glue to the back of my truck. This will give it some stability to stand, and then I'm able to put it towards the front of my sign rather than having to glue the truck to the back of the sign. And then I'm going to hot glue the dowels down to the sign towards the front. And then I'm going to take those trees and I'm just going to begin hot gluing them in just a random order. I really just kind of placed whatever tree where I wanted it. And then I'm going to take that decal that I made before and I'm going to cut them out separately. I was trying to make it so that they were all going to come out in one piece, and I messed up on sizing a little bit for this sign, so I had to cut down each line individually and place it on the sign.
Come joining us all. The feeling is here today.
You can buy these wood stir sticks, paint stir sticks from, I believe, Walmart. I think I got mine from Lowe's. You can buy a pack of 10 of them for about $1. So it's a super great deal, especially if you are looking to do some crafts with them. So first I printed out myself a star. This is about a 6-inch star. I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. Now this is like a sticker paper basically that I'm using right here. You do not have to use that. That is in fact the only kind of printer paper that I had at the moment. I had no regular printer paper, so I used this sticker paper, which actually did turn out quite well because I could just stick down the star to the stir sticks instead of having to hold the star there. So you can see I am just lining up my stir sticks and then I'm going to trace that star out. So my idea for this was to create a kind of palette look star sign. You could also use popsicle sticks, which might also be a lot easier than what I'm doing right here, but this is the way that I decided to go. So I'm just taking my miter shears, which I will link down in the description box below. This actually worked really great for this because you have this little lever at the bottom where you can change the angle of the cut, which is kind of perfect. I'm just going and cutting where I drew the lines on. Now sometimes you do have to go over it a little bit, and the paint stir sticks did kind of chip a little bit, so I did have to use some scissors. Occasionally I had to use my little crafting knife to kind of score it first. This isn't the best kind of wood to use with your miter shears, but the miter shears in some instances, like you can see right there, it cut perfectly. So it really, I feel like it depended on the paint stir stick itself. I don't know why some cut easier than others, but it is what it is. Now, I will tell you that this project did take me quite a while, and that's mostly because I messed up several times. So just try to pay attention to what you're doing instead of watching the TV while you're crafting, and you will not take, a good hour and a half on this project. So I am just going through and cutting, like I said, all of the lines where they are. And this ended up kind of being like a little puzzle that I had to try to figure out which piece went where towards the end, but I thought that this was really fun. After you get all of your stir sticks cut out, you are going to want to sand them down because there will be some rough edges and a little bit of, chips here and there. So that's one thing that I would recommend. So here I am just putting it all together, making sure I have the pieces in the right spot. I'm going to take my Craft Smart stain. This is just in the Barnwood Brown. I love this stuff because it dries really fast and it's not stinky like normal stain. And I actually really love the color of this stain. It's more of like a neutral brown instead of where the wax from Waverly, the antique wax, is more of like a warm tone brown. So I really love this stuff. I love just some neutral brown decor in my home. So I just go through and paint all of those in that stain, wiping off the excess. And then after I'm done doing that, I am going to distress it with some Waverly white chalk paint. I'm going to go around all the edges, and then I'll take each piece individually just to kind of give it a little bit more dimension so you can actually see that they are individual pieces. I got this sign from the Dollar Tree. Now I'm taking some brown paper just to cut myself out a template. I had a sweet subscriber mention this little tip to me, so I'm just taking a piece of paper, measuring it down inside, and then I'm going to use that as the template for my scrapbook paper. I did get my scrapbook paper from Hobby Lobby. That's where I will get all of my scrapbook paper in this video, and I'm just using my paper trimmer to trim this. This is seriously the coolest thing. It cuts my crafting time in half rather than having to use scissors, and it makes straight cuts super easy and simple. I love it. Now I'm going to go ahead and take some Waverly wax in antique, and I'm just kind of distressing the frame a little bit. I mostly did this because there were some spots in the sign that just weren't great looking. It was kind of uneven in color, so I decided to just kind of distress it and make it all look cohesive. And then after that, I'm going to take some Mod Podge and I'm going to Mod Podge my scrapbook paper down. Now, one thing I don't do is Mod Podge on top. I always wait until the bottom layer is dry first before I go on top. That way you get less wrinkling and, making it look all wet and wrinkled. So I'm just taking my little Cricut smoothing tool and I am just smoothing out all those edges. After I'm done doing that, I do take my sandpaper to the star just to rough it up a little bit. And then after that, I am going to just glue it down. I do start with the middle pieces. I did glue it down a little crooked, but I'm not perfect. I do not make my crafts perfectly all the time. And since it's for me, I wasn't too worried about it. So like I said, I just start in the middle and work my way out. Now after I'm done with this, I did toy around with several different ways to finish it. I had the little berry garland all twirled up and I thought I was going to use that. In the end, I just go with some ribbon. I tied this ribbon into a cute little bow and I just hot glued that on the front. I'm just kind of slowing it down for you so you can see how I make my bows. Super, super easy. And I just hot glued that right to the front. I ducktailed the ends and just hot glued it down.
Come on now, let's go, caroling through the snow all day.
DIY, you're gonna grab a tag sign from the Dollar Tree. They have some in some Christmas prints right now, so you should be able to find them. I'm gonna paint this in my Waverly chalk paint in lacquer. I'm just going to do one good coat of it, and then I used my little heat gun to dry the paint so much faster than it normally would just drying on its own. I'm gonna go ahead and distress my sign mostly around the edges. I wanted that wood look around the border of the sign, and then I did sand down the front of the sign quite a bit so that it would have that scratchy look to it. Then I'm going to take this burlap that I got from Hobby Lobby, I believe last year, but I know that they carry these all year long. I'm going to take that and I'm going to hot glue it down to the back. I made sure to pull tight so that the burlap was pretty tight around it. I'm going to take this buffalo check ribbon that I also got from Hobby Lobby. I know that these were out at the Dollar Tree. I don't know if it's there right now, but I know that it was there during the fall time. I'm going to put that on top of the burlap and just hot glue it down. I'm then going to take some white string. I'm going to wrap that around 3 times and tie a little tiny bow right in the center. I printed out the word Noel from my computer. I will have that as a free printable down in the description box below. And I'm going to show you how you can use this rather than use a Cricut if you don't have a Cricut. If you do have a Cricut, go ahead and use that. But this is a great alternative to any of the projects that we do using a Cricut. Take the printable and you want to scribble all over the back of it with a pencil, making sure to get everywhere where the words are, where the letters are, and then you're going to put that where you want it on your sign and you're going to start tracing out your letters. You do want to press pretty firm to make sure that the pencil does transfer through the back. Now you could use carbon paper or transfer paper for this. I didn't have any of that, so this is what I did instead. My handwriting is not good at all, so by all means, if you have a good free hand, do that. But for me personally, that's one of the reasons why I like using my Cricut so much, is because I can get the pretty font without trying to freehand it, because I am not a good freehander. I can barely do this method as it is. So this method works perfectly if you don't have a Cricut. If you do though, or if you have stickers, that would work too. And you are just going to start tracing that over with whatever color that you want. I chose black. This is just a black Sharpie from the Dollar Tree. And then I will go over it with some black, with a black paint pen. Don't mind my head getting in the way. Apparently I need to see an eye doctor because I had to be so close up to this to be able to see the lines. And then you're just going to begin filling in the word with your paint pen, or you could just use paint. Whatever you have on hand is definitely going to work. And I just filled in all the letters with that black paint pen. I believe it's from the brand Sharpie, and I just got it from Walmart. After that, I'm going to take this other ribbon. I believe I got this from Walmart, and it is wired, so it is super easy to manipulate, which I love. I can make the tails curly, and I just cut out one piece to make a loop for the bow, and then I cut out another piece for the tails of the bow. I'm going to put the loop on top of the tails, and then I'm going to take some twine and I'm going to just tie them together with that. I'm going to use some hot glue and hot glue that to the top of my sign, and then I'm going to twist my tails and hot glue those down. And I absolutely love the way that this little sign turned out.
We've been good, but we can last. Hurry Christmas, hurry now. I can't wait to see what's under the Christmas tree for you and me. Oh, little bear toys that caught.
For this next DIY, I'm going to take these 2 triangles. My husband cut these out so that I didn't have to while I was busy working on my other projects. I'll have the dimensions in the description box below. And I'm going to take these 2 pieces of scrapbook paper that I got from Hobby Lobby. All the scrapbook paper that I get is typically from Hobby Lobby. And I am going to trace those out and cut them out using my craft knife. I'm going to use some glue stick and I'm going to glue down my paper on top of my triangle. I'm going to let those dry, and I'm going to take these wood slices that you can get from basically any craft store. I'm going to drill a hole in them, and as well we drilled a hole in the triangles on the bottom. I got these skewer sticks from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to hot glue the skewers down into the wood rounds. I then added some beads. These are just from Amazon. I put some hot glue into my triangle and then hot glued that down to my skewer stick. And then I basically followed the exact same steps for my second one, although I didn't put as many beads on the second one. I added 4 beads, added some hot glue in between the last 2, and then pushed those together so that those would stay up, and then attached my wood slice to my skewer stick. I took some of my Waverly antique wax and I just distressed the outside of both of my triangles. I also did a little bit of light distressing on the beads just to give it a little extra something. You could leave them plain, but I thought that they looked really cute with a little bit of distressing to them. After that, I'm going to take some twine, I'm going to loop it around my fingers about 2 times, and I'm going to make a cute little twine bow for each of them. I hot glued those down to the very top bead, and I let those dry, and that is it. That is my cute little triangle beaded trees. I thought these turned out so cute. I got this gnome for the holidays sign from, like I said, the Dollar Tree, but I just got it for the gnome alone. I thought he was super cute, but I wanted to give him a little bit of a makeover, so I started off by taking off his nose, and I was going to sand the glitter off of his beard, and then it ripped the paper when I took his nose off, so then I just ended up taking the paper off, and then it just turned into a bigger mess than I thought it was going to, so I decided to flip him over onto the back, and I am just basically freehanding the rest of his beard. It actually took me quite a while to do that. I am not a very good artist when it comes to freehanding things, so I did look up pictures online, and then I just kind of tried my best to get it to match what I was seeing. So I just took my time with some white chalk paint to go around all those lines that I freehanded, and I am just using the white chalk paint from Waverly. And then for the pants and feet and the hat, I am going in with Waverly chalk paint in lacquer. So again, I just took my time on a small detailed brush to go around the beard with the red, and then same with the top of his hat. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't making any big mistakes. And then I also like that you can kind of still see the pencil on the beard. I feel like it gives it more detail, kind of makes it pop a little bit more, if that makes sense. So a little happy accident is basically what that turned out to be. And then I did take some steel chalk paint from Waverly, and I just used it on this little detailed brush, and I'm just kind of giving him a little bit more detail to his beard, kind of, you know, how a beard isn't just plain white, you know, you got little gray hairs in there too. So that's what I did with that, just to give him a little bit more definition. And then after I was done with that, I took my sandpaper and I am roughing this guy up. I am going to go around all of the edges. I'm also going to go throughout the entire gnome itself, just to give him a very rustic look, very scratched up and you know, old kind of looking. So I'm just taking the nose, hot gluing it right back on there, and then I'm just going to do the same thing with the little pom-pom that was on the end of his hat, and I'm just going to hot glue that right back onto the little gnome. And then after I'm done with that, I'm going to take these planks that I got from the Dollar Tree. They come in a 6-pack, and I took 3 of them. I'm going to basically stain them in the Waverly wax in antique. I love using this as a stain, and I feel like it turns out super pretty. So that is what I'm doing here with all 3 planks, just wiping on the stain wax, whatever you want to call it, with a brush, and then wiping off the excess with a paper towel. And then for the frame, I am going to use a stretched canvas. I already had taken the canvas off of this frame previously, so I just grabbed it to use it. I'm going to paint it in my white Waverly chalk paint, and I'm not doing, a super great job at painting, basically just, giving it a one good coat. But I'm just gonna go through and basically give it a little bit of a rustic look, dry brushing on there, making sure to hit all of the sides and corners really well, and then I just kind of dry brushed around the rest of it. And then I'm also taking my sandpaper to this as well. And now I'm going to take some hot glue sticks and glue all these planks together. So after I'm done with that, I'm going to hot glue a little line around the planks, and I'm going to set the frame right on top, and then I'm going to take my gnome and put him right in the center of that, and that is it.
Wake up with a smile, the feeling is right today.
So for this project, some of my footage got deleted, and I'm just throwing this in as a little extra bonus. So I took this piece that I got from the Dollar Tree. It was like a shadow box, and I basically just took it apart. I'll try to put a picture of what it looked like previously on the screen so that you can try to see it. But I just painted the frame with plaster from Waverly. I painted the background in truffle, and then those are popsicle sticks in the background. I used the antique wax for those. So I'm taking the back part of the shadow box, and you can kind of see where it was like a little box, all together. And it came apart when I was taking it out of the main part of the shadow box, and I just hot glued those together. I did cut down my popsicle sticks so that they would fit right into the shadow box, and I just hot glued all of those in place. There wasn't really much to it. I mean, I just measured it out, hot glued them down. I wish that I had the footage that is now gone somehow. I don't know why that always happens to me, but it does. So I just thought this turned out way too cute to not show it, or else I probably wouldn't have put it in here. But I got this little truck ornament from the Dollar Tree. They came in a pack of 4, and then I'm taking the red berry garland, popping the little red berries off of there, and hot gluing them to the tree. I just felt like the tree looked a little plain, and I wanted to, jazz it up a little. So I'm just hot gluing those down to the tree. And then I'm going to take this little wood round that I had. It's just a little scrap piece of wood, and I needed to give the truck a little bit of lift off of the sign. So I'm just going to hot glue the tree to the truck, and then I'm going to hot glue the little scrap wood to the back of the truck and hot glue that down. And then I'm taking this white berry garland or cream that I got from Hobby Lobby. You can get basically this color from the Dollar Tree as well. And I just made a little wreath with it. I've done a very similar project with a pumpkin for fall, and I loved how that turned out, and so I had to make a little red truck version of it. So I just put the whole piece back together. I stuck the glass back inside the frame, and then I put the box back inside of the frame as well. It just popped right back in. And then I'm going to take some black buffalo check ribbon, tie a super simple bow, and I'm going to glue this right in the corner, and then I'm going to use the tails to frame out the frame. I thought this turned out super cute. I had contemplated putting it in the middle, but I didn't want the truck covered up, and I just thought this positioning of it was absolutely adorable. So I then took some twine and made another really simple bow, put that on top, and that is it.
Magic in the air, 'cause something is waiting for me.
For this next DIY, this little tag right here was my inspiration. I got that from Walmart, and I thought it was so cute that I wanted to recreate it in a bigger version. So I'm taking this large tag sign that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to paint it the back in the white Waverly chalk paint, And after I'm done doing that, I'm gonna go in with my hot heat gun that I got from Amazon. I'll have it linked down below to make sure that the paint is completely dry before I start my next step, which is I got this large ruler / level. I use that to draw some lines on the sign, and then after I trace it just with the pencil, I did go in with my elephant chalk paint from Waverly, and I just went over the lines that I had previously drawn with that paint, and then I also used that paint to distress my sign. And then I am going to take some sandpaper to fade those lines. Don't mind the remote in hand. This was my 2-year-old telling me to turn on a show. So after I'm done sanding it the way that I wanted it, I took these Christmas trees that I got from the Dollar Tree. You can get them in a pack of 5. And I just cut off the little stars on the top and sanded those rough edges down. Then I am going to take that antique wax from Waverly again to paint these trees. Again, I'm just going over it, and then I will wipe off the excess with a paper towel, and I just did this for all 3 trees. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I created these decals in my Cricut design space. These are ones that I personally made myself, so if you are interested in those, definitely let me know. You can contact me on my Facebook and my Instagram account to purchase decals that I create. So I'm just going to lay all these out. These trees were a little bit too long and I didn't want anything hanging off the edges, so I just cut off little pieces of the tree on the inside. You wouldn't even be able to tell because I'm going to have one tree on top. So I'm just going ahead and applying my decal, just putting it where I want it, smoothing it down, and then removing that transfer tape. I loved the different colors, the black and the red combined with the antique wax and the white and the distressed. I loved it all. So I'm just going to add all of my decals on here, and then once I have gotten those positioned the way that I like it, again here, another one of my children needing their doll's hair done, their little trolls. She wanted its hair done. So I had to stop to do that before I could continue. So now I'm going to just hot glue my trees down. Like I said, I'm just going to put 2 on the bottom, and then I will put 1 on top of those. And then as far as the embellishments to the top, I got this little pick from Walmart. It was 98 cents. And I'm just going to tear it apart, cut it apart, and I'm going to position it the way that I wanted to. And I'm going to hot glue it to the top of my sign, and I took a couple of those berries and also hot glued those down. And then I took this ribbon that I believe I got this from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to tie a simple bow and hot glue it in the middle.
Hurry now, I can't wait to see what's under the Christmas tree for you and me. Oh, little bad toys that cuddle and woo, dinosaurs, boats, and kitty cats too. Santa Claus is coming. I know that Santa Claus is coming. Oh, little bad toys.
For my next project, I'm going to take this little sign that I also got from the Dollar Tree. I was going to take the paper off, and it ended up just being a little bit more of a mess than I anticipated. So I am just going to take some sandpaper and just sandpaper over the paper that was ripped, and then I'm going to paint over it with my Waverly paint in steel. And I'm just going to go over that entire thing, making sure that I got a couple good coats on there so that it would cover up the purple. And while that is drying, I'm going to take these paint stir sticks that you can get from Lowe's or Home Depot. You can get in a pack of like 3, I believe, for $1. And I'm just going through and I'm going to use my miter shears to cut myself some pieces. And I am going to cut myself out 4 pieces. So this was a little difficult to do, but it wasn't too bad. You had to press it about 4 times on all 4 corners or all 4 sides. And then I'm going to take some sandpaper and sand down the edges. Now I did make sure that these were all about an inch shorter than the one before it. I wanted to make a little Christmas tree. For the top one, it was a little bit smaller than an inch in total from the other piece, if that makes sense. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. But I just wanted to use the remainder of that flat edge so then I didn't have to get out a new stir stick. And then I'm going to paint all the edges in that same steel color just so that they matched up with the sign. And then I'm going to take this scrapbook paper that I got from Hobby Lobby. I just bought them in the scrapbook packs. I did end up changing my mind on some of them, so you will see that there are a couple that I did not show. And one thing that I don't know where my footage went for it is I just took some Mod Podge and I laid it down on the stir sticks, and then I laid the paper on top of it. I cut around it, waited for that to dry, and then as you can see, I'm taking my sandpaper and I am basically sanding off the excess paper. It comes off really easy when you do it this way. And then I also wanted it to give it a little bit more of a rough look, so then I also did extra sanding around the corners. Then I'm going to take some Mod Podge and go over the top and the sides just to make sure that that paper is nice and stuck down there so it doesn't come up later. And then with the sign, I was feeling like it just wasn't, I don't know, there was something about it that I wasn't liking. I decided to take my antique wax and go in all of the grooves and corners of the sign. I feel like this really helped the sign to look aged and rustic. And it also, I feel like, kind of blended the background to the frame, if that makes any sense. So I just took my antique wax and I went over all of the sides and the frame part. And then I also did that on the outside and to the corners, just so that all kind of match and blended well together. And then after I did that, I took this little stem that you can get from the Dollar Tree in a pack of little branch stems. I took my miter shears and I just cut it in half so that I could use that as a little trunk to my Christmas tree. I hot glued that down, and then I hot glued all of my little plank Christmas tree parts in place. And there wasn't a ton of room. There was, you know, I kind of played with the idea of spacing them out a little bit or kind of make them go in opposite directions, if that makes any sense. But there wasn't a ton of room, so I decided to just, you know, make them all straight. And then I took a little star that I also got from the Dollar Tree, I believe last year, is one of those little stickers, and I just popped that right on top. And then after I'm done doing that, I'm taking this garland, this berry garland that I got from Hobby Lobby. I've used these in a couple of my videos and I absolutely love them. I think they're super pretty. So I just cut out 3 strips and then I'm just going to hot glue them in between each of my little planks just to give it a little bit more of a decorative touch. And I thought this turned out super cute. Now for this next project, you are going to need 2 scrap pieces of wood. These are 2x4s, and I cut one to 8 inches and one to 12 inches, and then you're going to cut a 15-degree angle on both of them, both sides starting from the middle and then going down. I taped both of the wood blocks with some painter's tape, and I painted both of the bottoms in some white Waverly chalk paint, and then I painted one gnome hat in the Waverly chalk paint in lacquer, and then the other one is in the apple barrel acrylic paint in arbor green. I then took some of my Craft Smart stain in brown and I just began distressing the gnome. I went all over the hat, I went all over the body. I did make sure to not get the little face in there. I wanted that to stay plain. And I just did this to both of them, and then I took some sandpaper to each and I just began sanding them down, mostly the edges, so that there was a little bit more detail and dimension to the gnomes. I wanted the natural wood to show through. I then took this fabric fur, again, got it from Amazon, and I loved the red to it, and I thought that it would look so cute with the green hat gnome. And I'm just going to cut out his beard. I'm then going to cut out a strip for a mustache and for some eyebrows. So you can see I just cut them into little small pieces. And I'm just going to begin to attach the mustache by hot gluing it down. I will hot glue the nose on top, and then I will hot glue the eyebrows on afterwards. And then I followed the exact same steps with my red hat gnome. Just added some fur for his beard, added some for his mustache, added his nose, and then added his eyebrows. And I also went through and added some hot glue around the nose and pushed the fur up around the nose just so it hid that hole in the bottom, and then it kind of blended that nose in with the rest of his face.
Santa Claus is coming. Santa is coming. I know, I know. Santa is coming. Oh.
So for this next project, I'm going to take this scrap piece of wood that I got from my garage. I'll have the dimensions on the screen right here. And I'm going to start by painting it white in my Waverly chalk paint. And then I'm going to take my sandpaper and distress all the edges. And then I'm going to add my decals to it. So I did make this decal over in Cricut Design Space. So I will link it down below if you have a Cricut. I'll also link the free printable. And then if you are interested in the vinyl decal itself and you don't have a Cricut, then I will link my Facebook shop where you can purchase it from there. So I just start by adding each little piece of my decal. I did have several different pieces, and when you put it all together, I think this looks so cute. And here is how my little letter to Santa turned out.
Hold up, I am on my way. I'm in motion. Let's go to the ocean.
So for this next project, I got these large plywood circles from Hobby Lobby. It came in a pack of 3. I used this Art Minds chalk paint in indigo and then my Waverly chalk paint in silver lining, and I just mixed a little bit of those two together. I added some painter's tape to my circle, and I'm going to paint half of that in that blue color. I wanted to change things up a little bit from my usual red decor, and I thought this was really pretty. I absolutely love this color, and I've been wanting to make one of these round signs for a really long time, so I'm so happy that I finally was able to do that. I removed the painter's tape, added some more, and I'm going to paint the other half this color. After I'm done with that, I'm going to add some more painter's tape because I wanted to add another stripe, so I just went a little bit above the brown side and then a little bit below the blue, and I'm going to add a stripe of my silver lining chalk paint to there. And then I took these Christmas picks that you can also get from Hobby Lobby. I took 2 of them and I tied them together with some wire. Then I'm taking this gray buffalo check ribbon that I got from Hobby Lobby again, and I decided to make a little bow with it. Now, there wasn't a particular way that I did this. In fact, I was basically just kind of winging it. I made 2 loops and then I just hot glued the loops together and tied them together with a piece of twine, and then I cut off some tails for my bow, and then I also tied the tails onto my bow. And then I still wasn't super happy with the way that the sign was looking, so I took some white chalk paint and I decided to distress the entire bottom half over the blue. I just wanted to give it a little bit more dimension, make it look a little bit more rustic. I just did a little bit of a heavier dry brushing over the entire bottom. I drilled a hole in the top of my sign so that I could loop some wire through there, because trying to hot glue this greenery, these picks down to the sign just was not happening. So I just hot glued the wire to the back of my sign, and then I hot glued my bow directly in the middle of my picks. I cut out this little decal that says "Have yourself a Merry Little Christmas." I put both of those on my sign.
Yeah, let's go outside. We can hang out on the beach without freezing. Yeah, isn't that amazing? In Christmas times, we'll be chilling and having a good time. Doesn't matter if
So for this next project, I'm going to take these skewer sticks that I got from the Dollar Tree. I love using these to paint my wooden beads. It just makes things so much easier. You're not getting your hands all messy trying to hold each bead individually. And I'm just going to take my lacquer chalk paint from Waverly and I'm going to paint my beads. I do this very messily. I did not get them 100% painted because I did want them to look distressed and rustic. So you can see I'm just kind of slapping the paint on there. Really no particular way of doing this. You just roughly paint it. Then I'm going to take some other beads that are slightly smaller than the first. I'm going to take that same Barnwood Brown stain from Craftsmart, pouring it into this little paper cup, and basically just staining them. This is so much faster than trying to paint them, and you can do it in like 2 seconds and it looks great. So I'm going to take this little tassel template that I cut out. I got this idea from the Daily DIYer here on YouTube. I'm going to wrap some twine around 10 times. I'm going to use some twine to tie a little knot in the middle. And then I'm going to use some of this ribbon that I got from, I believe, Hobby Lobby. And I'm going to use that to wrap around the top of the tassel. And then I'm going to take some excess twine and wrap it all around the middle, getting that ribbon and the twine in place. And then I'm just going to cut the loops off of the bottom, and then cut off the excess twine and the excess ribbon so that everything is even at the bottom. I'm going to take some sandpaper and rough up the red beads a little bit. Like I said, I wanted them to look rustic, so I just took some sandpaper to do just that, make them look a little bit more rustic. I took my twine and I strung my beads on there. I tied my tassel on, and then I got these super cute ornaments from Walmart. You got 4 for $1.98. When I saw these, I knew I had to get them right away because they would probably be gone by the next time I got there. So I believe I picked up like 2 or 3 packs of these cute little ornaments, and I wanted to use this on the bottom on the other side of my tassel. How cute is this? Super rustic and farmhouse with the cute little plaid red truck on there. Next, I'm going to take these 2 pieces of wood. These are 2x4s. One is cut to a square and then one is cut a little bit longer into a rectangle. I will have the dimensions listed in my description box. And I again am just going in with that same Craft Smart brown stain. I wanted all of my pieces to be cohesive and to match, make them look like they're a part of a set. So that is why I do use some of the same materials and colors. So I'm just going to stain that and then distress all the edges with some sandpaper so that you can see that natural wood show through. And then I'm going to take that same red buffalo check ribbon. I did get this from Hobby Lobby. And I'm going to make these into little presents. I thought these were so stinking cute. I just hot glued the ribbon down together, and then I tied a simple bow and hot glued that to the top of the ribbon where the ribbons cross. And then I'm going to make a little tag for it. So I contemplated and back and forth of what I wanted to add to it because I knew it looked too plain. So I took this scrap paper. I got this in a pack from Joann's, and I am just cutting out a little tag. I used one of my wooden paint sticks as a little template for a rectangle, and then I just angled the top pieces. Then I'm going to take my red paint marker and write the word Santa. I did leave the other one blank just so you could see what they looked like blank, and then with some words on it. I'm going to take some twine and tie that around the block, and then I'm going to take some more of these beads, do basically the same thing that I did with the tree, just loop some beads through some twine and then tie a knot so that they don't come off, and then I will add the tag along with the beads. I did glue down that first bead just so that it stayed where I wanted it to be, and then I did hot glue the twine to the back so that those stay in place, and then I added my little tag to the front. Now for the second little present, I'm going to take this burlap ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to cut it in half and use both of those as a little ribbon for this present. I did kind of shred the sides. I just removed some of the pieces of twine from there so it looked a little bit more rough, not as such of a clean edge, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to take that same red buffalo check ribbon and I am going to tie a cute little bow on the front, and then I do hot glue the tails to the back. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to do basically the same thing that I did with my first one. I got a couple of beads, put it on some twine, and this time I hot glued the beads to the tag itself. Then I hot glued the tag down and then wrapped the remaining twine from the beads around the present and then just hot glued that in the back. And that was it. I thought these turned out so dang cute. There are so many different ways you can finish them.
My friends and family, making angels in the sand, you ready? Doesn't matter, it's Christmas in my heart, and I can promise Santa's coming.
And then for this next one, I'm going to take this little gnome ornament that I got from the Dollar Tree, this little tree skirt that I also got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to give this gnome a makeover. So I'm going to start by taking all the tags off of everything, and then I'm going to start measuring out how much material I need for the gnome's hat. And then I am going to just start hot gluing it down. I thought this tree skirt looked super cute for a little gnome hat for Christmas, especially with the little fluff around the edges. So I'm just basically measuring out how much fabric that I need, and then I'm going to start hot gluing it to the gnome. There was really no like rhyme or reason of how I did this. I just, kind of started doing it there. So, just wrap it around the gnome's hat, and I made sure to fold over the edges of where the little seam was going to be so that there would be a more flawless seam. So I decided to take a little scrap piece of the little fluff on the end of the material and turn that into the end of his hat. I thought this was even cuter than a cotton ball would have turned out, so I just cut off the fluff off of the material, and then I ended up just wrapping it around the top of his hat and hot gluing it down. I thought this turned out so cute. I absolutely love the red buffalo check and then the little Santa fluff, to go on his hat. I thought it was so cute. So I just ended up folding the top part down and then hot gluing that in place, and I thought that this turned out super, super cute. I did end up putting the nose back on. I wasn't sure if I wanted to use a wooden bead as the nose or if I just wanted to attach the other, the nose that it came with, but that's what I did. I just took the nose, the original nose, hot glued it down, and that was it. Turned out so cute, and I love my little Christmas gnome.
No, he wouldn't miss this in Christmas times.
So for this next project, I'm going to take these wreath forms that you can get from the Dollar Tree. These are 8 inches and you get 2 of them for $1. I took this garland that I also got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to start wrapping this around. Now I did cut the garland down into about 3 different sections because it was getting a little difficult to try to wrap the entire thing all at once. So I would just wrap it in a section, tie it off, and then wrap the remaining sections around it. I wanted my little wreath to look flocked, so I just took some white chalk paint, and I'm basically just going over the entire thing, pretty heavy handed too. You could also use some spray paint, but I was really lazy that day and didn't want to go outside to spray paint it. So I'm going to take, again, this buffalo check ribbon, and I'm just going to start wrapping this around my wreath. No particular way of doing it, just wrapping it around. And I'm going to hot glue the ends down to the back of my wreath. I just kind of tousled it a little bit and fluffed it into the way that I wanted it. And then after that, I'm going to take this sparkly berry garland that I got from Hobby Lobby last year, and I am going to wrap this around my wreath as well, hitting those spots where the where the ribbon did not, so it's in between each section of ribbon. And I thought these were so perfect to match the cute little red truck ornament that I got from the Dollar Tree, since it's sparkly and there are spots on the red truck ornament that you can see right here that are sparkly as well. So I thought that the berry garland matched perfectly. Now I'm just taking my hot glue and hot gluing down my truck ornament. And then I tied a little bow with the same ribbon and hot glued that down.
The sunset, it is just getting better on a blanket with the skyline painted in blue. Ooh, yeah, that's what we do. We'll be chilling and having a good time. Doesn't matter if the snow is falling.
These are little trees that you can get from the Dollar Tree. They have stakes on them for your yard, and I thought they were such a cute shape, so I decided to pick some of these up. And I'm going to go ahead and remove all the glitter using a heavy grit sandpaper. I'm going to remove that stake, and I'm going to take these beads that I got off of Amazon and I'm going to start cutting them in half. I have seen so many pieces where beads are outlining the trees, especially at Hobby Lobby. I've seen several trees like that, so I decided to make one on my own. So I'm just taking my miter shears and cutting these right in half. They cut super easy. I hardly had to apply any pressure at all. And then I'm just going to begin hot gluing them around my tree, just outlining it. Took a little bit of time, but it wasn't hard to do at all. I just had my hot glue gun and I just basically outlined the entire tree. And then I decided to paint this white. So one thing I would mention is it's probably a lot easier if you paint this white before you put the beads on, and then you're not having to try to get into all the little crevices of each little tiny bead to try to cover up that green. So don't follow what I'm doing. Follow what I'm saying. Paint the tree white first, at least one coat, and then put your beads on after that. And then I took my Waverly chalk paint in Truffle and I painted the star and the stem in that color. And then I went through and slightly distressed the beads, dry brushed them with that same Truffle paint. I love the way it makes the beads pop off of the tree. I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. And then I'm taking some of these tumbling tower blocks that you can get from the Dollar Tree and I'm making a little stand with them. So I am just hot gluing two together in a set of two, painting that with my Waverly chalk paint in Truffle just to match the trunk of the tree. And I am just hot gluing one set on the front and one set on the back. Like I said, it just makes a cute little stand so that your tree can stand up right. After I'm done that, I'm going to take my steel chalk paint from Waverly and I'm taking these two little bells that I got in a pack from the Dollar Tree and I am just kind of dabbing this on there. I wanted the shininess of the bells to go down, make them look a little bit more rustic. And I'm going to take some twine and make myself a little bow. I just take this around 2 fingers, loop it around about 4 times, tie a knot with some jute in the middle, and that's it. It's so easy to make little twine bows like this, and I think they are so cute. After I get that all tied, I'm going to take my little bells and I'm going to string them onto some of the tails that were on the bow, and I'm going to hang one a little bit lower and then the other one a little bit higher so that they fell at different lengths. And then I'm just going to hot glue that right to the tree. And I thought this was so stinking cute, especially with the long tails of the bow and the little bells. I absolutely love how this project turned out.
All the windows and the rain is pouring. It will always be Christmas in my heart. But this year
And that's it for today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed all of my favorite Christmas crafts. I am so excited to get all of these set out and into my home decor for this Christmas season. Let me know what your favorite craft was in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
we're gonna dance, have a good time.